Today we have a super exciting topic. It's all about data, big data, smart data, what's really the right term for it. And we are joined by a data expert, Leo from Stackfuel. So they provide really great programs for data skilling and for providing people with a great data analytics skill set. And he will give us some insights today whether we will all need data skills in the future and what's the best way to get there. So welcome, Leo.
Hi, Felix. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's dive right in. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Also, like a super trending cover, data, a trending topic, data, AI, automatization, and we start pretty bold with the first statement that you made, that the lack of data skills prevent companies from leveraging their full potential of data. So right there, the question, in your opinion, like, how is the current skill level within companies regarding the handling of data?
That's a pretty broad question, and I think you can't answer it so broad. So I think it really depends on the sector and then also on the companies. But what we see a lot is, because we work with a lot of companies across different industries, so from pharmaceuticals, insurance companies, financial companies, telecommunication companies, they are very different. And sometimes we assume, oh, this company is already super data driven because they might have a lot of R&D people in the team, or they are a technology company. But when you dig a bit deeper, you find that not everyone in those companies has the skills. And so I would answer it more that way, that what we see is there are, in most of the companies, there is right now some kind of data business unit, data science, business intelligence, some kind of R&D. So some people who are really experts in data. Nearly every company has that when it comes to over 1,000 employees. But when we talk about the democracy of data, so is everyone able to work with data? Are managers able to work with data? Are the people on the baseline able to work with data? Are people in business units which get more and more data driven able to work with data? I would say there's a lot of ground to cover, and we see a lot of companies struggling, and that's also where we see ourselves as a partner to help them upskill. So I would say, yes, on the one hand side, there are already a lot of experts, the so-called data scientists, AI engineers, etc. There's more and more people on the market, but by far not enough to cover all the topics that companies have. And on the other hand side, we have the basic people who are not working with technology on the day-to-day basis. And there's a lot of things to do still.
Yeah, it's true. And I also heard, like, recently a funny commercial, like of a data company, and they were like, either you leverage data or you go out of business. So to which group of companies do you want to belong? But you touched on a very interesting term, the term data-driven, right? And everyone likes to say we are data-driven. We only take decisions on a data-driven basis. How would you define the term data-driven? Like, when is a company really data-driven?
Yeah, so first of all, maybe I want to go back to that example that you just made with the advertisement, because I mean, there's some examples that make it very clearly that it's not just a joke, but it's, if there's companies who are very data driven and are able to leverage data and transform data into insights, I think that's a very popular term. They can be on the forefront of innovation and can lead in the industry. So for example, let's take the classic German automotive OEMs versus a Tesla, or let's take the traditional publishers versus Google or Facebook. And we see, there's a big shift in the industry, and it is a competitive advantage. So when is a company data driven? In my opinion, a company is data driven when everyone in the company knows how to analyze, process, collect, and work with data. and if everyone really knows why those data guys are in the company. Because what we really often see is like there is this expert community of data scientists, AI engineers, etc. But all the other 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in the company ask themselves like, will my job be replaced? And this is a big fear that a lot of people see. And I think what company leaders have to realize today is that they need to make it clear to everyone that they don't need to be programmers in the future, but that they need to understand technology. And with technology often comes data. So for me, a data-driven organization is where everyone within the company is enabled to work with data on different levels.
Interesting. Yeah, also interesting point about how people perceive these data teams. I guess also the term data scientists, like it makes you think as a regular employee that it's, somewhat difficult to get there. Like, someone who has studied physics or chemics or stuff like that. So they seemed like very far away. So something you don't want to really be also related to. But what I was interested in, so when we say data driven, I mean, you mentioned these 4 points that every employee should kind of be able to achieve these. How does this then look like? Like, do you have any examples where a data-driven approach made a difference for a company?
Yeah, definitely. Let's take one example. Let's take a telecommunication company we are working with. Here we started training really in the data business unit, so where we help people to upskill from being normal analysts. So they didn't know how to work with Python, but they were very advanced with Excel. So we brought them on the next level to become data analysts. And a year later, they even became, so their job title changed from analyst to data analyst, and in the end to data scientist. So I think this is like where we changed a specific job group. But when it comes to the basic in that very same company, for example, we have the customer service. Because in customer service, same as in sales, that, I know that there's it's a lot of data that is getting tracked. So how many calls are made, what is the satisfaction factor, all these things. And sometimes people ask themselves like, why does my boss want to track this? And but if you think about it, and you are able as a company, as a leader, sell this information to your employees as like, hey, I'm trying to make your job easier, I'm trying that you can get better, then good things can happen. And this is what exactly happened in this company, where we helped to upskill people in data awareness, data literacy, to just understand why is it important that we track these numbers? Why is it important that you know how to read graphs? Why is it important that you know how data is visualized? And I think these are the main points. And whenever you find a good use case for your employees, why they should be interested in data, you will have success.
Yeah. Okay. And that's a good example. And I guess it also leads nicely to our second statement, which is, I guess, what you were alluding to when you said like data literacy. Like a lot of, or you said that the majority of employees and managers, they feel overwhelmed by data, right? So that kind of leads to the situation where they don't like to evaluate data, or they even neglect them. But is it just the amount of data that is overwhelming for employees, or are there also other aspects within the statement where you see this overwhelming factor of data?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because there's 2 big points I can make. The one is, it's not really about big data. Most of the time, it's really about smart data. So you have some data at your hand. So let's make an easy example. You are calling 20 clients. And after the 20 clients, your boss asks you like, okay, how did the calls go? And you say like, yeah, I think they went very well. Okay, and then you go through the different points and ask like, okay, what went well, what didn't went well, and you come to some conclusion. So this might work for 20 people, but let's say you go through 100 calls or 150 calls or even 100,000 calls, then we come to big data. You can find a lot of knowledge, in there, and so in the end, it's all about smart data, I would say. It doesn't necessarily have to be big data. And when you are able to find knowledge, insights from data, it's already the next step.
Mm-hmm. So just coming back to this big data and smart data, like what's the difference? Like, does smart data mean it's less data, or does it just mean that, you know, even if you have big data, it's not very useful if it's not kind of, you know, analyzed in the right way?
Yes, smart data is most often used, as a term where you want to go away from big data, because everyone says like, okay, we haven't collected enough data to make those analyses. But most of the time that's not right. You just need some data, you need some dashboard, you need some visual form of data to make, to find some knowledge. And this is also one of the main points we make in the data awareness training that we offer, that we help people to make visual statements out of data, because that's what we all know from working in our jobs, right? We need to present results, we need to present findings, and the way how we visualize them really differs how we see the result. And also on the other hand side, if we have a magazine and we read a statistic, it really depends on how this is shown in the magazine and how we receive this information. So it's just important to have that understanding. And in the end, what is really data driven is if it's not all your gut feeling. And this is really when we come back to these questions about the managers. So often, they have been in business because they are managers. They have been in business for a very long time and they trust their gut, which is great because there is some truth in it. But on the other hand side, if you can support your decision with data, you can make, on the one hand side, a much better decision for yourself, but also for your peers. If you make a decision based on data and people can evaluate this data, they will trust your decision much more. And this is what we see a lot happening.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of an independent source that, besides my manager said so, that he felt like doing that. There's some truth behind it. Yeah. Yeah, but I also like your point about the visualization of data. On LinkedIn, there was like a post, Munich being like second place in VC funding. And I was like, wow, second place, wow. And then it was just the growth, right? And from the total amount, it was like Munich was like really on the last place almost. So that's like a good example of kind of how the visualization of data might be misleading or leading to
or might work for this purpose, whatever you want to show, if you put it in the right light and give that extra information, like in terms of, in this terms, it's a growth story, right? It works great. It looks like the things that we were doing, but in the end, it was presented as like, hey, we are the number 2 or number 1. It's a great example.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm always wondering, kind of when we talk about data, right? And I'm like, why should I learn about data, right? There are machines for that. There is software for that. There's AI for that. And I just want to get the result, right, from the analysis. And then I can take a judgment. So what's your take on that? Like, do I really need to know a lot about data, or is that part, better off with machines who can really analyze much more data than I can as a person?
Yeah, I believe in the future we will see a lot of technologies that will make our life much easier, and we don't need as much knowledge as we might need today to analyze data. And for example, we are talking about data science. I would say next step is artificial intelligence, but also technologies like robotics, 5G networks, edge computing. All these things as a base layer have data. So, if you understand the base layer, so if you understand how data is collected, how data is analyzed, all these different things, if you really understand this data circle, I would call it, then you have the opportunity to understand the technologies after it. And I think like we were doing a lot of manual work today. There's a lot of automation going on. And on the one hand side, this will cost a lot of jobs, because these things that won't be, they won't be done manually in the future. So those people need to have a new job, but they now have the opportunity, if they can work together with the machines and the automations, and have that skill of creativity, what we humans have. And I believe creativity is something that we will always have much more than machines. And I believe if you can connect this technical knowledge with creativity, this is something where, a lot of people can profit from. So I believe it's a mix.
Yeah, good point. But kind of having this basic understanding to then go deeper, right, with the help of machines, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of if you just always very superficially look at a specific topic or talk about it in private life or in business life, it's always hard to go a bit deeper in the discussion. And as more and more job roles, companies, business models get tech driven, you should be able to understand the basics. So let me make an easy example. If you're working at a bank and for the last 20 years, you have analyzed businesses that sell goods, export, import, whatever, things that you already know for many years. This is how you look at a business. Now there's a Tesla, and maybe the main part of the business of Tesla is maybe not selling the car. Maybe there is something in between. So how should you judge this as an analyst if you don't understand the basics behind it? And that's why I think data is key to have your first steps into the technology world, and then you can decide how much technology knowledge do I need? Do I need to know how to code? Do I just need to understand how it's working?
Yeah. That's a good point. And we also have a question from the audience, Leo. So many people are listening in. Jonathan asks, the challenge is to make sense of the data and come to the right conclusions. And his question is, how can we assure that we don't overfit the data or draw wrong conclusions from it?
Yeah, very good question. I think it leads back to the point that I mentioned before, that I believe there is, we as humans, there's different opinions and we do different parts of analytics to get to a decision. However, data is supporting this decision. So I believe it depends on the model we are looking at. So if we are looking at a very, very technical model where the machine has to make decisions within nanoseconds, I think, yeah, it's a very technical question and the system needs to get better. But if we talk about business decisions, it's really that data supports what we are deciding, what we are doing. And I believe this interaction between humans, between machines, between algorithms, this will really work better in the future. And right now we are at a kind of a tipping point where there's not enough people who are able to understand what these machines and automations are doing. But we will be able to do it in the future. And I see a lot of companies already getting great results from leveraging data science and AI right now.
Okay, so that's also a great segue that you built here, Leo, to the last statement, because I mean, I guess we established that data is kind of the entry point. That data knowledge is needed and not a nice to have, but really a must have for everyone, right? And you claim that scalable workforce training is really part of the solution to close the data skills gap. So really, the blunt question I had before written down, kind of, does every employee need data skills in the future? I guess we can say that this is a yes, right?
It is a yes, but I would say it, like I said in the middle of the talk, not everyone needs to become a programmer. Not everyone needs to have that PhD title. Not everyone needs to love mathematics. But everyone should have a basic understanding so that he or she is able to join the conversation, to make their own decisions and to learn something. And we see that a lot when we do data literacy, data awareness trainings in corporates. Sometimes people really find like, oh, I had a very bad experience with math when I was back at school, but now when I see this data together with what I do in my job, I really want to work with data. So I want to dig deeper, and maybe I now know what I need the skills for, so I want to learn it. But again, I don't think that everyone needs to be a data scientist or a data expert, but everyone should have a look at it and then decide if they want to go a bit deeper into it. But in general, yes, if we are talking about a data-driven company, and a lot of companies now taking that into their company values, which I find very, very interesting. If we really put that, on our company value, then really everyone in the company should be able to work with data and discuss about it and have that very good interactions between tech people and non-tech people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because we also created new guiding principles, and data-driven is one guiding principle now.
Right.
so yeah, I guess there might be a conversation to be had. But I mean, let's become a little bit more practical. You said the kind of, as a salesperson, you kind of, look at 10 calls, 100 calls, 1,000 calls. But let's make it very, very specific. Like, if I would be, or I am a salesperson, right? like how would this impact my life? Like would I be better to come to better decisions? Would I be able to analyze better what I've done, what deals I have worked on, or what would you think? Like how would it improve my daily life?
Yeah, let's take the example. If you would go all in and say like, I want to do the data analyst training, for example. So learn Python to do analytics with Python. What you would be able to is, work a bit more freely, because right now you are tied to your CRM and to your manager who has specific rights in that CRM. But you might want to do your own analytics out of that software, out of that CRM. And you might want to work with internal CSV files that export from the system, but you might want to take this and compare it with other data from a different company, or you want to enrich this data with, I don't know, some external data. Could be weather data. How did I perform when it was warm outside? How did I perform when it was cold outside? I'm just making up something right now, but you would be free to do that. So you can be very entrepreneurial. You can work with it. So if you go all in and you really want to become a data analyst, have the skill set. So in our sales team, we have people who are doing our trainings because they are selling it on the one hand side, but they also really want to use it for their own life. But then on the other hand side, we also have people who say like, hey, I'm fine with getting the basic data awareness training and understand how I can do this visualization. And I think, what's the biggest takeaway for people who are a bit far away from working with data right now is in presentations. Yeah, let's say it's end of the quarter, you overperformed all of your peers and you want to show that in a nice presentation. If you know how to present that data, which format to use, which visualization to use, this is a real plus. And this should be in the very basic skill set of everyone leaving a university.
Yeah, but it's not, right? I mean,
it's not. No.
Yeah, I mean, I had statistics, but there was more like, if I go there, what's the expected outcome that I draw a coin there with a face on it? Yeah, it was very abstract. But anyways, so what I want to close with, you also said that it's important that it's scalable, right? Because, I mean, there are data scientists out there already, right? So I guess, every company could do the training themselves, like they could train the people, right? Because they already have them. But what do you mean by a scalable way of doing that? Like, how does it look like? And I guess what's the benefit over like a traditional approach?
So first of all, we see ourselves always as a part of the puzzle in a training solution, in upskilling and reskilling your workforce. And you mentioned a good point. There are already data scientists. I mentioned that before. There are data scientists in nearly every company now. So there are, in theory, people who have the knowledge. So now here's the question. Can I invest the time and money to put those very expensive guys on creating a curriculum for the company? If that is what I really want to invest in, I think that's a great solution. But now here comes the second point. Are those people willing to share their knowledge? Are those people have time, or are those people do they have any interest in teaching other people, or do they want to find solutions for data problems? Do they really want to dig into the data, and were they employed to help other people to get on their level or a level below? And in most cases, it's not. That's why we always work very closely together with the data business unit and understand their business cases. And most of the time, it's that way. You need to find some use case from the data science department that worked. So as a data scientist or as a lead data scientist, and this is what you bring to the management, and if the management likes it, they will invest more into into data and into data-driven organizations and into the data business units. What you most of the time don't find time for is like caring about all those little data problems in the different business units. That's why most of the time data business units are really happy if they bring us on board. And what's the real benefit is that we really, you just send us first name, last name, email address, and we take care of everything. So from onboarding, leading through the training, helping you when you get stuck, certification in the end, and in the end, you come out with a guaranteed skill set. And that's why most organizations decide for us rather than maybe, very, very broad course catalogs where you might find something interesting here and there, but it's not really a tailored program for someone working in a company getting those specific skills. And then what also happens in the end. Most of the time, if there is a data team already, they will look out for those participants. So they will give them information like, hey, you now learned how to work with Python. This is where you get the data from in our organization. This is how you can install something on your machine, etc. So most of the time, it's hand in hand together with this data business unit.
Yeah, okay. So they are driving it, but they kind of outsource the task of upskilling then to a scalable solution like yours.
Right.
Yeah.
And we develop the training together with those business units, not for every company itself, but whenever we change a training, develop a new training, we are in exchange with those head of data science, director business intelligence out of the different companies and ask them, is the skill that we are teaching here business relevant? And if it is, it's in the training. If it's not, it will get kicked out of the training. And that's as easy as it is.
Yeah, no, that's great. And hands down, I mean, how much effort is it for me to get to the next data skill? Like, do I need years, decades, or, you know, how much time does a person need to invest to get like to the first step to data literacy?
So data literacy, for example, it's 12 hours in total over 4 weeks. Yeah, so you have 3 to 4 hours that you spend every week. So it's always on the job. So that's always the best case, that you just, that you can use it during the job. And for example, for a data analyst, it's 3 months in total, and you have to spend 6 to 8 hours per week. So it's a bit more time, and it takes a bit longer, but in the end, you get a lot of practical skills. So it depends on the training program, but in the end, yeah, you can do it beside the job, and within 3 months, 4 months, you can get a completely new skill.
Nice. Leo, we are already over time. I promised you not above 25 minutes. Now we're above it. Our marketing will kill me, but it was great fun. Thanks for the insights, for enlightening us about data. How can people reach you if they want to learn more?
Here on LinkedIn, I think this will be streamed on LinkedIn, or first name, last name @stackfuel.com is also where you reach me. So happy to hear from you, and thank you very much for having me, Felix.